Now let's learn how to graph a solution set. So it says that we have to graph the solution set of each of the following linear inequalities in the xy plane. So, and we just have this inequality over here. Now we have to graph this on the xy plane. It would have been simpler if we had an equal to sign instead of this, right? Because that would just be a straight line on the xy plane. But now we have this. What does this really mean? What do we have to do now? Now remember, when you have inequalities, you have to remember a few rules. One is that if you have either this or this, the line that you will draw on the xy plane will be a dotted line, because, well, that's just how it is. But if you have this greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, you'll draw a complete line. So what we'll do now is, basically, the first thing that you have to do is you have to make the associated equation. How do you do that? Well, you just simply replace whatever inequality you have with an equal to sign. This will basically give you your either this or this line that you have to draw. Simple. So you replace the inequality sign with the equal to sign. Now the first thing that you have to do is you have to find the x-intercept. Now in this particular case we only have one inequality, but if you have 2 or 3 or 4, you have to find the x-intercept for each and every one of those. So the first step, find the x-intercept. How do you do that? Well, you plug in y is equal to 0 in the associated equation, which is this one over here. Now when you do that, you get the value of x, and that is 3 in this case. So the x-intercept is this point, 3, 0. Simple. Now the second step, find the y-intercept. And again, you have only one inequality in this particular question, but if you had 2, 3, 4, 5, you have to find the y-intercept for each and every one of those. Whatever steps you'll do in this, whatever steps you're doing in the graphical solution, you have to apply those steps on each and every single one of the inequalities that are provided to you. So find the y-intercept of the inequality given in the question. You plug in x is equal to 0 in this case, obviously. And again, let me just give you a brief explanation of why. Because you have this, say, xy plane, right? So this is the x-axis and this is the y-axis. So the y-intercept is, so for example, if you have this particular line over here, this is the y-axis. Now you have a value for y, definitely this is the value for y, but what is the value of x over here? That's right, it's 0. So when you are finding the y-intercept, you plug in x is equal to 0, and when you're finding the x-intercept, which is this over here, you have a value for x, which is this over here, but the value for y is, again, that is 0. So in case of the x-intercept, you put y is equal to 0. So to find the y-intercept, x is equal to 0, you get a value for y, which is 6. So this is the point, 0, 6. That is the y-intercept of the inequality. Now the third step is to find the test point. Again, you have to find the test point of each and every one of the inequalities given to you. So how to find the test point? Well, you plug in this x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 0 in the inequality given to you, and this was the inequality given to us. You plug in 0 in place of x and 0 in place of y, and simply you get 6 is greater than 0. Is that true or is that false? Well, that's obviously true. Once you find the test point, the result of the test point to be true, that means that you'll have to graph the inequality. The graph of the inequality will be towards the origin side. Now what do we mean by that? Again, and by the way, when you're finding the test point, the result of the test point, you will ignore this symbol over here. You just look at this one. That's a very important thing to remember, because otherwise, obviously, 6 is not greater than or equal to greater than and equal to 0. Obviously, that's just weird. So let me just erase this, otherwise it'll cause confusion. Now the graph, the result was true. 6 is indeed greater than 0. So, or 0 is less than 6, that's the same thing really. So the graph of the inequality will be towards the origin side. What do we mean by that? Well, you see this? This is the graph of the associated equation. But this is the line of basically 2x plus y is equal to 6, right? But no, we have an inequality given to us. When there is an inequality, there will always be a shaded region. And since we found out that the result of the test point was true, the graph will be towards the side of the origin. And this is the origin, this over here. So you'll shade this entire region. You could have shaded on this side as well, but that is not towards the origin, that is away from the origin. And so yeah, this is how you find the graphical solution of an inequality.